Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Leanne and I am the face behind Small Gestures, Vintage and Crafts. In today's video, I'm going to take some things from my inventory, my hoard, my stash, whatever you want to call it, and with the help of some decoupage paper and some transfers from IOD, I'm going to give them a little bit of a makeover. So stick around because today it's all about the birds and the blossoms, or the blossoms and the birds, whichever you prefer. Let's do it.
For my first project, I wanted to use one of the transfers from IOD's latest release, Fairy Tale Florals. It was in their summer 2024 release, and these are great images because they're smaller in scale, so they're really good for small projects. And I have a bunch of these pewter tumblers or glasses, and I thought it would just be really cute, really simple, just to put a floral transfer on one. Now, I won't tell you how much time I have spent looking for my clear transfer stick, so I finally decided to get out some painter's tape and put some tape on the end of it, so hopefully I'll be able to see it a little easier and it won't get lost. So like I said, I really like these little transfers. They fit perfectly. So I thought it would just be easier because it's a curved surface and kind of a tight curve with the glass. I wanted to trim out some pieces and then just make some little slits in it, so as I do the transfer, it'll kind of wrap around the glass a little easier. I nearly averted a disaster here because I was afraid the glass was going to roll around, so I thought I'll put some lint rollers there, until right there it stuck to the lint roller. Luckily, I was able to get it off, but that's when I said, yeah, I really don't need to use these. I'll just hold on to it. I just like to hold my transfer still while I work on one end and just start taking the transfer stick, and you really just rub it good to release it from that top carrier sheet and adhere it to the object, in this case my little pewter cup that you're transferring it to. And as you work it, you'll be able to see it becomes a little more opaque, and depending on the surface that you're working on, sometimes you can even hear it crackling a little bit as the transfer actually releases from that top sheet. And if you go to lift it up and you see that some of the transfer is coming up with it, then you just put it right back down and rub it again. And it's really it's a very simple process. I like to think of it as stickers for grown-ups. And then after your transfer is completely adhered, you just want to burnish it, which is basically just taking that carrier sheet and rubbing the transfer really well just to make sure it's good and adhered to the glass. And I didn't want to put any type of a top coat that would have a sheen on it. I wanted to maintain a matte finish, so I just decided to take some clear wax and go over the transfer and the glass just to seal that transfer in and just help protect it. So for my second project, I wanted to do a decoupage book stack. So I grabbed some books from my inventory and a piece of decoupage paper, one that I really love, and I guess I'm starting to get into the fall vibes a little bit, but I was worried that the spine of the book, if I just painted over it, you would see that indentation through the paper. So I pulled out my Bondo. This one is wood filler, but it worked absolutely fine. If you've never worked with Bondo before, it's a two-part compound. So you just stir it up really well, and I scooped up some of the wood filler, put that down. It wasn't going to take very much at all. And then in that little tube is the hardener. So you just squirt out a little bit of the hardener, mix it together really well. And you do have to work kind of fast because this thing completely sets up in like 10 to 15 minutes. So you do have to work super fast, but I just mixed it good and then just spread it along the spine. I wanted to keep it fairly even because I didn't want to have to sand more than what was necessary. But I just spread it along and then just let it dry. After the Bondo had set up, I took them outside, gave them all a quick sand to smooth out the spines and cleaned them up, and then moved on to the next part of the project, which is getting ready for the decoupage. I wanted to go ahead and paint the spines white. You don't have to paint before you put down decoupage paper, but it really does make the paper pop a little bit more. So we get started painting the spines, and you'll see as I go along, I don't necessarily go right up to the edge because I really like the way that the paper looked with each of the book cover colors, the green and the red and the black. So I wanted you to be able to see the edges of the books beyond the paper. I didn't want the paper to cover the whole book, I guess would be an easier way to say it. The paint that I'm using for this is White Swan by DIY, and I usually get my DIY stuff from Heather at Create Your Own Cozy, so I will link her website in the description box below if you need to pick up any DIY paint or products. After the paint was all good and dry, then I pulled out my handy dandy glue gun and Gorilla brand glue sticks. Those are the best that I have found. I just wanted to glue this stack together so it would be easy to decoupage, so you could stand it upright or lay it on its side. So I got to make sure everything is level, and then repeat the process on the other side and clamp it down with my little clamps. I didn't want to take a chance of them falling over or anything slipping, so we just put the clamps on and let them sit. Once the hot glue was all set up, then it was time to decoupage. And I am using Liquid Patina by DIY. It's a great decoupage medium, and I'm just laying down what they call a starter strip, and I'm just going to do this little bit right here and fold over the paper, press that in good. I also like to kind of put my hand in a plastic bag to smooth over it so I don't accidentally tear it. If the glue or the liquid patina were to seep through, I wouldn't want it to get on my fingers and then have sticky fingers when I'm trying to smooth out the paper, the decoupage paper. So I always stick my hand in a plastic baggie and it seems to do the trick. After I get the spine done, then I'm going to do the same to each of the covers on the green book and the black book. And I guess repeat and rinse and repeat, as they say. Once the decoupage is good and dry, then I pulled out an X-Acto knife and I just split the paper between the 3 books because I want to be able to go in with some more liquid patina and rub it along in between those books and get that extra paper glued down in between there. And then if you remember, I didn't go quite up to the edge because I wanted to show the colors of the books. So I'm going along with just a little artist brush and some water to get the decoupage paper wet so I can pull it away and just tear it a little easier. I didn't want to cover the book, of course, and then I didn't want to have a clean cut like where I had cut it with a razor or an X-Acto knife, so I always like to wet the paper and then just tear it. And this is where I'm just taking a little bit more of the liquid patina and pushing it down in between the books so I can get that paper that I cut, those little flaps, I can get those glued down to each of their respective books. I had to do a little patch job right here. I got a little too aggressive with my paper tearing. I have quite an assortment of little medallions, and these are these little metal tags. These are from Tim Holtz, and I got them off Amazon, and I love them. I wanted to add one to the book stack, so when I tied it with twine, you can see I put one of the knots in the back because I wanted you to be able to slide the medallion depending on how you wanted to display the books. If you wanted to stand them up, or if you wanted to put the green book down or put the black book up, I wanted you to be able to just slide them around. And here's the finished product. For my third and final project this week, I am going to give a makeover to this frame. I picked up a couple of these at an estate sale, and they're really heavy wooden carved frames, and I'm not going to put anything behind it. I just like sometimes displaying groupings of empty frames, whether they're hanging on a wall or whether they're on a table. So that's my goal with this one. This canvas part of the frame did have some little fibers that were starting to come loose, so I went in on the fabric part with the liquid patina just to kind of glue everything in place, so as I continued to paint it and put transfers on it, it wouldn't start unraveling on me. So after that was good and dry, I went in with a couple of coats of White Swan by DIY, and I wanted a chippy finish on the frame, so this is milk paint. It's Sweet Pickins milk paint in Moody Blue, and if you've never used milk paint, it's a 2-part. As you can see, it's a powder paint, and you just mix equal parts powder and water, stir it good for a couple of minutes, and then let it sit for about 10 minutes. It's supposed to thicken up. Personally, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong because my milk paint never really thickens up. It still goes on just fine. The first coat is a little sad looking, but by the time you get a second coat on, the coverage is just fantastic. With milk paint, you really never know what kind of a finish you're going to get. Sometimes you may get a lot of crackle and chipping, and sometimes not at all. I did pull out my heat gun because I wanted to enhance any kind of a crackle and chippiness that I would get with this one. When I bought this transfer set, the Fairy Tale Florals by IOD, I really had this frame in mind because these images, these transfers are smaller in scale. I thought they would look really pretty on the inside. of this frame. And my friend Heather at Create Your Own Cozy, she sells DIY and she also sells IOD. As I was looking at this frame, I realized I didn't get a whole lot of chipping that I was hoping for, so I was worried in the beginning that it wasn't going to stick to the frame at all, and now here I am with sandpaper trying to get it to chip a little bit more. But I was worried I was going to take some of the finish off on the frame after I go through the paint, so I put the sandpaper away and pulled out a wire brush. And that definitely helped the paint chip a little bit more. It didn't scratch the frame, but it really helped loosen up any of those loose little flakes. The thing I really love about these IOD transfers is they stick to just about anything. Metal, glass, fabric. I've put them on drop cloth. They stick beautifully to this canvas on the frame. The process is always the same. You just use the transfer stick and rub them in really good onto the surface. Peel it away, peel that carrier sheet away, and then give it a good rub down, a good burnish. After the transfers were complete, I came in with one final coat of liquid patina over the frame and the transfers to seal everything in. Since I didn't get as much chipping as I had hoped to show some of the gold finish, I added some with some antique gold rub and buff just on some of the highlights, not everywhere, just a little bit here and there, just to highlight some of the detail on the frame. And now it's time to replace the paper on the back of the frame. I didn't want to leave the exposed wood, so I cut some craft paper to fit, and this is just plain white Elmer's glue. Full transparency here. I honestly have never done this on the back of a frame. I've never needed to, but my grandfather in the 1960s owned a framing shop in Atlanta, and my mom was an artist, and of course she worked down there, and I remember her telling me that this is how they would always frame art pieces, just with brown craft paper, and then spritz it with water. You don't want it drenched, just get it good and damp, and then just spread some glue down on the back of the frame and put the two pieces together. So I just lay the paper on the frame, line it up as best I can, and smooth it out, and I'm just trying to pull very gently so you get a nice taut fit. It kind of stretches out the paper a little bit. It takes me a couple of tries to get it lined up the way that I want it. But lay it down, and once you, kind of like decoupage, once you get that starter strip going, then work your way down. And I'm trying to stretch it just a little bit to get out any wrinkles that I may have, and just press it down really, really good. Now it just dries. Okay, it looks like the back is good and dry, and I would say it's pretty tight. Check this out. Look at that. It's on there good and tight. I'm super happy. I was almost done with this little frame, but I just wasn't happy with the raw edge between the white and the blue paint. It just looked unfinished to me. So I took some twine, and I've got glue in this little bottle of mine, and twisted it together to keep those fibers tight, and decided to just run some hot glue all around the edge and put some twine down just to kind of finish it off a little bit more. In the description box below, I will put links to some of the supplies that I have used today. All of these projects will be going on my eBay page. And if you're still here, I hope you enjoyed today's projects. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you liked today's video, go ahead and give the video a like and subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you.